Trump says California had to ration water because it poured its supply into the sea to take care of certain little tiny fish during a bizarre rant on Fox News. He's been ranting about this since 2016, it's what he does. He gets political memes in his head and then spouts them later at inappropriate times. But this is a red herring, okay, it's actually a delta smelt. Here's a brief background on what he's talking about. The certain little tiny fish are called delta smelt. They live in a freshwater river delta in California. The river is used for crop irrigation by state and federal pumping stations that send the water to local farmers to spray on their crops. The pumps are huge and powerful, and when schedules overlap they can run the river backwards, pumping volumes higher than the river is flowing, especially in droughts, when the water is needed even more by the farms. There used to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these delta smelt. Over the past 10 years or so, they're probably in the low tens of thousands. Researchers aren't even finding them anymore in their surveys. They like cloudy water to hide in from predators. The pumps make cloudy water. They get sucked into the pumps and die. The government made net traps to keep them away from the pumps, but they dump them out of the nets elsewhere, and big fish, some invasive, have learned that's like feeding time and just eat them all where they drop them back in the water. We're not good at helping the environment. So why does he say they're pouring their water into the sea for these delta smelt? 2 reasons, but both have little to do with the delta smelt actually. Like everything Trump says, it's a canard just to rant against change. 1. If they pump too much water out of the river, the salt water in the sea will backflow into the estuary to fill the void. The next time they pump, they'll be pumping salt water. That will kill the crops. They have to maintain enough river flow to always keep the net flow towards the sea, which means pouring its supply into the river to Trump, but really means not stealing the river until the sea fills the river basin. 2. If they pump too much water and kill the delta smelt, they're also going to pump and kill a lot of other fish species. Those fish include some like Chinook salmon that go off to the sea and become food for killer whales and other larger ocean species. Invasive hardier species will have less competition and will take over the ecosystem that's left. You'll have a marine ecosystem collapse. So the delta smelt is not only a red herring, but also a coal mine canary and harbinger for the rest of that environment. So, like everything Trump says that sounds stupid. It probably is. In this case, saving the delta smelt means saving the entire delta and even saving the crops he claims they're going to let die because they're not pumping as much as he wants. And the real problem here is a combination of the drought, from climate change he refuses to acknowledge, and the overdependence on California farming, that everyone refuses to address, that we have as a nation. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. Tiny fish. What are the odds he just finished Finding Nemo? It's like he gets the 3 main topics of the story and mashes up the details in his brain. For those who care, the Central CA Valley grows a lot of stuff but doesn't get a lot of water. Northern CA gives its water to them via a canal. Pumping tons of water to them kills the environment, including a lot of native fish. Central Valley farmers decided to dump normal crops and grow almonds because they make more money with them. Almond trees require a ton of water. And that is where we are at. Yeah. So basically this is what growing old with full-blown dementia looks like. Yeah. I'm halfway there. I'd prefer not to look like that. The base will love it though. Words. They don't understand them. But they know California equals bad. That's about their English level. Invoke the 25th. He's referring to an endangered fish found in California rivers. The state, feds, reserve some of the river water to maintain the fish habitat. Riparian rights are a big issues in western states. Pretty sure this, https://www.npr.org/2019/10/22/772391421/Trump plan weakens protections for California fish, diverts water to farms, is what he's referring to, but he gets it so mixed up. Whatever sanity the man had left is gone. If a guy was saying this sort of stuff to you on the subway, you'd ignore him and pray that he didn't start masturbating before you could get off the train. It's like his entire cult is LARPing all the time. The first thing they do with anything is make up some crazy fantasy about what is actually happening and why Democrats are really doing it. They're all playing a big game while we deal with reality. I feel like a lot of this has been caused by the disconnect between the miracles of technology and the very low bar required to utilize them. These people have been allowed to become backwards little monsters. As an interface designer, I feel directly responsible for making machines too easy to use. We made it so babies can use iPads. We were so focused on if we could do it, we didn't think about the consequences. Instead of babies using them to get smarter, parents just started thinking babies were smart. This is what we get for letting adults believe in Santa Claus. Religion doesn't seem that bad until it kills all of us. He's lost it completely. I, a Californian, remember that day well. Local news announced that a certain tiny fish had been spotted in the ocean, and in a fit of madness, everyone just started filling buckets with water and throwing it into the ocean. Afterwards, I recall as we all started looking at one another and asking, why did we just do that? Then, the wildfires. Ugh. I feel like we're getting close to the point where the dolphins peace out. Yes, if you water your crops with these tiny fish in the water, you start growing shark plants, and this is exactly how Sharknado started, says Trump. Who is letting him talk publicly? The world is laughing at us. Just remember, folks, the guy who thinks California dumped all its fresh water into the sea to help imaginary, saltwater, fish is also the one with the nuclear codes. Okay, so the story is actually about a small endangered fish called the Delta smelt. The ecosystem that the smelt are living in is dangerously close to collapse. As the name implies, they live in the marsh delta, not in the ocean. Also, water isn't being pumped into the marsh environment to save the fish. Instead, there are now strict limits on the amount of water which can be pumped out of the delta to be used on nearby farms. The smelt have very short lifespans, which means that an impact on their environment can stop their breeding, resulting in a very rapid drop-off in their numbers. While this is bad for the smelt, it is also an indicator of how bad the ecosystem is getting for long-lived creatures. When the water pumps are in action, they can pump out the fish along with the water, and the volume of water that the pumps extract means that the water becomes extremely cloudy with all the debris that gets stirred up, which is bad for the smelt and the other fish. Trump is running the gamut on Fox News Talking Points. Peloy, AOC / the Squad, and California. I love how California is always painted as this hive of villainy and scum, while ignoring it's the biggest contributor to GDP and growth over the last 30 years. Edit, gamut is the correct word. Gamut, full range or breadth, vs gambit. This is just the usual situation where there is a real kernel of truth, which has been filtered through ideological positions, and then dumbed down to incomprehensibility by Trump himself. There has been a complex, long-running fight in California about how our watersheds work, which pits urban water users, agricultural water users, delta water users, and natural water users, such as the delta smelt, the certain little tiny fish, against each other. The problem is how to get the right amount of water in the right place at the right time for everybody, and we are able to have this fight because we have so thoroughly re-engineered our watersheds here in California, with a vast system, dams, canals, and pumps. So we have situations where agricultural users get less water than they would prefer to have, and where urban water users get less water than they would prefer to have, and where the delta is experiencing seawater incursion because the amount of fresh water flowing down to meet and push it back has been reduced, and where our native species are dying off. And then to add to that already stressed complex of problems, we have droughts, whose intensity and frequency appears to be increasing with climate change, and which decrease the availability of surface water, and we have massive depletion of our groundwater supplies, and laws to do with water in California are extraordinarily complex, and only recently started to address groundwater. We have some people in California who think that we should just be capturing every drop of water that flows down from our mountains. So they complain that we are wasting water by letting it flow into the ocean. But we have other people who point out that if we stopped all flows through our river channels, then we would have severe ecological problems in the Delta region. Trump has been captured by the people who think we should be capturing every drop of water, so he has been inculcated with their ideology that California is doing something terrible by trying to balance all of these different interests, and thereby satisfying nobody and nothing completely. And, yes, partly as a result of all these problems, in the most recent drought, there were some parts of the state where water rationing had to occur, although I put rationing in quotation marks because, for some people in California, just having to pay a higher rate, or a penalty rate, for water above a certain calculated amount per household is rationing, although I would not call that rationing. I would call it incentive pricing, or something like that. But Trump does not understand any of this, and he has evinced no willingness or aptitude to understand the complexity that is California.